Zelensky, a registered investment advisory firm located in New Jersey. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm or its representatives by securities regulators, nor is it an indication that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability. Investment advisory services may only be provided to clients in jurisdictions in which the firm and its representatives are appropriately registered or exempt from registration. You should not assume that any discussion or information contained in this broadcast serves as the receipt of or as a substitute for personalized investment advice from the advisor. Different types of investments involve varying degrees of risk, and there can be no assurance that the future performance of any specific investment strategy, or product, or any non-investment related content made reference to directly or indirectly in this broadcast will be profitable, equal any corresponding indicated historical performance level or levels, be suitable for your portfolio or individual situation, or prove successful. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Investment advisory services offered through Wealth Quarterback LLC. Tired of losing money in the stock market roller coaster? Frustrated with the government taxing you into oblivion? Worried about inflation? How do you prepare for so many financial uncertainties? Welcome to the show that will help you develop your game plan. The Financial Quarterback with Josh Jelinski. Josh is a noted financial advisor and president of the Jelinski Advisory Group, and he's here to answer your questions. Call into the show at 800-321-0710. 800-321-0710. Now, let's kick off your financial future. Here's Josh Jelinski.
Good morning, everybody. This is Josh Jelinski, the Financial Quarterback, coming to you live, taking your questions on all matters financial at 800-321-0710. If you have questions on stocks, bonds, annuities, mutual funds, we are here live taking your questions. So whatever question you have, no question is a dumb one except the one that you do not ask. So we are here. We're going to talk about how much to save in your emergency fund. And we're going to give you a comprehensive guide. Also, as lawmakers gear up for federal debt limit, here's what it could mean for Social Security. 5 reasons why you maybe don't want to open a Roth IRA, and how to make your retirement asset out of a home equity. As the saying goes, risk happens fast. From medical emergencies to job loss to car and home repairs, unforeseen events can quickly derail your finances, especially if you are not prepared. That's where an emergency fund comes in. Having an emergency fund is crucial for weathering life's unexpected events and maintaining financial stability. By debunking common myths surrounding emergency funds and understanding the typical emergency expenses people face, you can better determine how much you should save and tailor your emergency fund to your unique financial situation. It's important to keep perspective when considering financial preparedness. While striving for a robust emergency fund is commendable, don't let it cause unnecessary anxiety. With 24% of people in the U.S. saving nothing and another 39% having less than 1 month's income saved for emergencies, you may already be in a stronger position than you realize. This doesn't mean that you can throw caution to the wind, but it does imply that you're probably trying to over-optimize your finances. The truth is that no one knows the future, and all the preparedness in the world can't prevent certain outcomes from unfolding. Ultimately, you have to make a well-informed effort and let the chips fall where they may. So, of dollars and data on the topic of the emergency fund, what is an emergency fund? Let's define it. An emergency fund is a financial safety net designed to help you weather life's storms with a bit more ease. While most financial experts emphasize the importance of having an emergency fund, the question of how much you should save for emergencies is still up for debate. We're going to dig in on the data on emergency funds and provide you with a framework for thinking about how much to save in your emergency fund and how to build an emergency fund efficiently. To begin, let's look at some common myths surrounding saving for emergencies before we tackle how much you should save in your emergency fund. So 24% of you have saved nothing, have saved absolutely nothing for emergencies. 39% have less than 1 month's income for emergencies. So where do you first start? Well, try to build 1 month. Okay, that's where you start. 1 month salary. So if you got fired or laid off, that 1 month salary with unemployment might give you a couple months. So if you have zero, start by saving 1 month. Then you have 1 month good, build 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6. My ideal is a 6-month emergency fund. So 24% of you have saved nothing for emergencies. So I want to hear from you. If you have saved an emergency fund, how did you do it? If you haven't, would you like help? So give us a call, 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-5674. If you have questions on stocks, bonds, annuities, mutual funds, we're here for you, taking your calls on all matters financial. We're live on Clubhouse and we're live on YouTube. 24% of you have saved zilch, nada, zip for retirement. How do you do it? How do you even live that way? But 1 month is where you start. So how much to save in your emergency fund? We're going to debunk some common myths. A common question among those planning their financial future is how much money should you set aside for an emergency? So we're going to debunk some myths. We're going to examine the typical emergency fund expenses, the kinds of emergency expenses that lead to bankruptcy, and how much people usually save in their emergency funds. So how much is the typical emergency expense? Well, you've probably heard this stat that those in retirement, so you've probably heard that only 1 in 3 Americans could comfortably cover a $400 emergency expense. Not only is this somewhat a misleading statistic, but $400 is not nearly enough to cover the typical emergency expense among U.S. adults. In August of 2022, Lending Club released a report which found that the average emergency expense was $1,400. That middle-aged and high-income consumers were more likely to have emergency expenses, largely due to disability. What did these, and disability doesn't mean, you're paralyzed. It could mean you have some type of illness that lets you out of work for 3 months. So before we tackle this subject of emergency fund a little bit deeper, we're going to go to Dan, who has a question on our listener call-in line at 800-321-0710. Go ahead, Dan.
Good morning, Josh. Thank you for taking my call. So last year was the first year I was required to take an RMD. And I'm wondering if you can assist a little bit here. What would be the strategy or the best way at what time during the year to take the RMD?
Well, the strategy to take an RMD would be when the market's high or at the end of the year to allow the maximum tax-deferred compounding time period. But you don't want to do it too last minute, because if you forget it, you might have a penalty if you don't take your RMD. So my tip for taking the required minimum distribution, do it by November the 30th. Set yourself a deadline. Okay, that way it gives you 30 days to cover if the mail doesn't get to you or that sort of thing.
Okay. Any particular reason why you suggest at the highest point or as high as you can?
Well, let's say there's a market rebound. It's better to take shares when they're up than when they're down. So, but you don't know exactly what the highest point in the year will be. Everything's conjecture.
Thank you so much for your help. Have a good day.
So if you just want to, so those are two tips. And if you need help planning for an emergency, or if you need help with the RMD strategy, call us 888-988-JOSH. We are live on Clubhouse and YouTube taking your financial calls. If you have questions on stocks, bonds, mutual funds, annuities, we're live on YouTube, Clubhouse, Spotify, iHeartRadio, WR, New York's big AM talk station, 71 on the AM dial, 710 AM. We're talking about a Lending Club report released that only 1 in 3 Americans could comfortably afford a $400 emergency expense. According to a new report released in 2022, the average emergency expense is $1,400. And 24% of you listening have nothing saved for retirement. So my tip, I know it can be overwhelming, but just save 1 month's income. If you don't have 1 month, try to save 1 week, then 2 weeks pay, then 3 weeks pay, then 4 weeks pay, then 8 weeks pay, then 12 weeks pay. If you do not do that, if you don't build an emergency fund of 6 months, do not invest in crypto or any stock, meme stock. Build your emergency fund first. Why? You may lose your job. And how are you going to build for your future? So we're going to talk more about this, but why did these consumers have more emergency expenses than everyone else, middle age and high income? Because they own more possessions that generate such expenses. We can see this clearly if we look at the most common kinds of emergency expenses that individuals face. The Lending Club report found that at 30%, car repairs are the most common unexpected expense. And consumers pay an average of $1,000 and $1,008 for car repairs. The next most common expenses are healthcare related, with 21% of consumers facing at least one healthcare-related emergency expense, had the highest cost of $2,042, and 19% of consumers face this type of expense. That's why after you've saved your emergency fund, the number one thing you should probably put money towards is disability insurance, because people are more likely to get disabled than to die early statistically. So invest in a good disability insurance plan. If you don't know how to do that, give us a call. And folks, when we return from the break, I'll be back with all of your questions on All Matters Financial. Give us a call, 800-321-0710. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial.
Tune in to the financial quarterback Josh Jelinski this weekend and learn how to protect your financial future in a down economy. Josh and his team at the Jelinski Advisory Group can help you lower your taxes and lower your risk in these uncertain times with a 27-point checklist designed to improve your financial health. Whether you're worried about runaway prices, fear of an upcoming recession, or a stock market meltdown, tune in to the financial quarterback and count on Josh Jelinski to call the play. For a free copy of Josh's book, The Retirement Reality Check, call 888-988-5674. That's 888-988-5674. Or visit Jelinski.org. That's JALINSKI.org. Maybe it seems like prices can't get much higher, or that the stock market is headed for bear territory. Or maybe you're worried about another Great Recession. Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback, can help you protect your family's financial future in times like these. Tune in this weekend to the Financial Quarterback to hear how Josh and his team can help you decrease your tax liability and lower your risk. Call 888-988-5674 to take advantage of Josh's 27-point plan to achieve financial health. And when you call, you'll receive a free copy of Josh's book, Retirement Reality Check. Tune in every weekend to the Financial Quarterback and call 888-988-5674 to receive your free copy of Retirement Reality Check.
Okay, we're back. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback, taking your calls at 800-321-0710, 800-321-0710. If you have questions on stocks, bonds, annuities, mutual funds, we'll take your calls on all matters financial. We would love to hear from you. Give us a call now. Bankrate did an analysis in January of 2020, which found that the median emergency expense was $1,750, with the average being closer to $3,500 among U.S. adults. I can't tell which data source is more accurate, but if we adjust for inflation, the typical emergency expense is likely around $2,000. This illustrates that the $400 figure, often cited by the media, vastly underestimates the cost of a typical emergency expense in the U.S. However, we don't just care about the size of the typical emergency expense. But what kind of expenses can lead to financial ruin? So we will turn to that next. What kind of expenses can lead to bankruptcy? It is often reported that medical bills are the most common cause of personal bankruptcy in the U.S. In fact, according to a report from the American Journal of Public Health, 66.5% of bankruptcies were tied to medical issues. Here's the thing. If you have a medical issue, don't pay your medical bill. Pay your mortgage, but don't pay your medical bill. Why? You can always work out a payment plan. They're generally not going to send you to debtor's prison. And medical bills, generally, they're not going to put a lien on you for medical bills. And if they do, you can stay in your house. But I've had people, I remember a lot of people, my parents sold their home to take what little equity they had to pay off their medical bills. And as I kind of became more knowledgeable, they did that when I was a child. But as I became more knowledgeable, that's the worst thing to do. The thing you don't want to miss is your mortgage payment, because you don't want them to kick you out of your house. Don't miss your mortgage payment, and don't miss your property tax payment. However, this seems to be the case of correlation and not causation. Researchers at the Massachusetts Medical Society examined medical events and future bankruptcies, found that only 4 to 6% of bankruptcies are caused by hospitalizations and medical debt. I think they're wrong about that, because I think they're forgetting the fact that when you have a medical debt, if you're a good person, you're going to try to pay that off, and then you might get some help, and then a couple years later, then you're having trouble with the mortgage. That's what happened with my parents. So if they were involved in some survey, they wouldn't have claimed that it was due to hospitalization, medical debt, but it was. They discovered this by looking at the proportion of bankruptcies that occurred before and after major hospitalizations. The effect of hospitalization on the likelihood of filing bankruptcy. That's why filing bankruptcy is better than losing your home, because, it's tough to find, if you go bankrupt, right? It's going to be tough for someone to want to rent to you. So the one thing that shouldn't go is your mortgage payment. And if you have to let the credit cards go, if you're in a major financial, downturn, let the medical bills go. the doctors, is the doctor really going to like send you to debtor's prison? No. They'll work out it. You can pay $10 a month for the next. Also, a little tip, the longer you wait, they send that medical debt to debt relief companies and they'll take pennies on the dollar. The longer you wait to pay those bills, like 2 years, it might be bad for your credit. But I'm talking about if you're in a place where you're just trying to survive, pay your mortgage comes first. And then if credit card debt becomes so overwhelming, just file bankruptcy. Not that I recommend that, but if it's a case of kind of financial pain. So we're talking about emergency funds, bankruptcies, and more. Go ahead, Tom. You're on. Tom, you're on. Go ahead.
Yes, yes, Mr. Josh. I listen to you religiously every Saturday mornings, and I follow your advice. I just have one question about municipal bonds. I won't mention the name, but will they rebound? I bought them in 21 when prime rate was practically zero. Now it's like 5%. I know the prime rate goes up, the bond value goes down, but will it rebound in a couple of years?
Well, it depends on what happens to interest rates. Typically, when rates go up, the value of municipal bond funds goes down. How much have you lost? What percent?
Well, it's about maybe
10%, 20%. Probably 20% if it's bond funds, maybe 15%. Do you know? You don't know? So bottom line is municipal bonds, if rates go down, the value is going to go up of that bond fund. If rates stay high or go higher, but it depends on the credit quality of those bonds. It depends on if they're tax-free. So if you want me to review your municipal bond funds for free, call me at 888-988-JOSH. We have operators standing by live to schedule you for a no-obligation review, okay? 888-988-JOSH. Okay, Tom, any other questions? And we're taking your calls.
Yeah, that was basically it. Do you see the prime rate going down after this administration?
Sure, but nobody knows for sure. It has nothing to do with the administration. It has to do with the Fed. And the Fed has said, hey, we're gonna keep raising them until the economy breaks, basically, till we have a recession. But I wouldn't, sell, just because people on the radio tell you to do anything. What I would do is call us and get a review, 888-988-JOSH. We're talking about bankruptcy and hospitalization. We're also taking your calls on All Matters Financial at 800-321-0710. Medical debt by itself doesn't seem to be the cause of most bankruptcies, so what is? A paper which examined household spending patterns and personal bankruptcies among households in Delaware in 2003 suggests that the answer is simple: overconsumption. A closer look at the bankrupt households reveals that they consume in a surprisingly similar fashion to the control groups. However, the bankrupt households make less than one half of what the control households do. So it's a spending problem, not a medical problem. So why do you think people go bankrupt? According to this article that I'm referencing, it's overconsumption. So a lot of people in the media say hospitalization, medical debt. Studies show that's only 4 to 6%. I would disagree with that because here's why. You get somebody making, $100,000 a year combined, married filing jointly, and somebody's out of work, and they go from $100,000 of income to 50. Let's say each spouse made $50,000. Well, they're used to living on, let's say, $80,000 after taxes a year. So the first year or two of the medical debt, they pay off the debt. Maybe they use a credit card to pay it off because they feel a sense of noble. You know what? That doctor took care of me. I'm going to pay that doctor. And you do this. I'm telling you, happened to my father. And you strive, you do whatever you can to pay that medical debt. Then a year or two later, your job's underperforming, you're underperforming at work because you just had a disability, you kind of get pushed out of work. So you go back, boss is nice, they let you back, and a couple of years later, you get laid off. It's not directly tied to the medical event, but it is. And then you don't go on disability because you're noble. You want to work hard for your family. It's all happened to my father, by the way, so I know. And then nobody wants you, 5 years after the disability event because you've lost skills. You're not as sharp as you used to be. So instead of making 50 grand a year, you make 30 grand a year on some type of minimum wage type job or 20 grand, 25 grand. And that's why it's overconsumption. You get it? So I do not divorce medical debt from this equation just because one article says that. I don't think that's logic. I think there are many uses, and overconsumption is one of them. Many reasons people declare bankruptcy. So what do you think? Type it in the chat box. Why do people declare bankruptcy? Is it overconsumption? Is it medical debt? And then if you have a question on Clubhouse or YouTube, we'll go to you. Or if you want to have a listener question, give us a call. Now, 800-321-0710. Someone says this on the YouTube chat. Are credit unions actually safer than banks? Do you actually get better rates? Are they all nonprofit? Credit unions generally get you better rates on credit cards and generally get you better rates on money markets, CDs, that type of thing, because they're nonprofits. They're owned, in essence, by the members. Are they safer? Well, there's something called the NCUA, which is like the FDIC. So as long as you keep your limits at 250, it's about the same degree of safety. Acrobizer are you an acrobat or a aerobics instructor? When in emergency mode, what is one covering? Everything is normal, meaning if one saves 3 to 6 months, is that just for food, utilities, and rent? The 3 to 6 months is 3 to 6 months of your income. That way with maybe if you get unemployment, you can stretch that a little longer than 3 to 6 months. So that's your gross income, because if you don't make any income, your taxes will be less. So that way that 3 to 6 months may stretch out to be 9 months. So it allows you 9 months to get back on your feet. So if I've been literally ignoring all of my mail and debt collectors for 10 years plus, how do you restart yourself in credit? Well, you get a credit check, number one. But you may be amazed if you ignored all of your debt for 10 years. Sometimes they write it off. It dings your credit. So you need to do you need to go to a credit repair specialist. But you may be surprised. Some of your debt may be written off. So if you have a question, now is the time to chime in. If you're on Clubhouse, type your question in the chat. And we're talking about 24% of you have saved nothing, not a zilch for emergencies. Why? Why do people go into bankruptcy? Some have posited medical debt. This article says overconsumption. I think it's probably a little bit of both. But here's the thing. No one's going to save you. Government can't save you. Your church may give you an offering plate for your first month of disability. But after a while, the love offering's going to stop. That's why you have to take responsibility for yourself and your own family and build a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. When we return, I want you to call us, 800-321-0710. And I want to hear from you. Have you set up an emergency fund yet? If so, how did you do it? And type 1 in the chat if you hear me. And 2, if you have a question, we'll go to you next. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial.
Tune in to the financial quarterback Josh Jelinski this weekend and learn how to protect your financial future in a down economy. Josh and his team at the Jelinski Advisory Group can help you lower your taxes and lower your risk in these uncertain times with a 27-point checklist designed to improve your financial health. Whether you're worried about runaway prices, fear of an upcoming recession, or a stock market meltdown, tune in to the financial quarterback and count on Josh Jelinski to call the play. For a free copy of Josh's book, The Retirement Reality Check, call 888-988-5674. That's 888-988-5674. Or visit Jelinski.org. That's JALINSKI.org.
Type a 1 if you hear me on the chat box. And share the room with all your friends. Share the radio show. We're live on New York's WOR, taking your calls at 800-321. We're going to go to Rob with a comment. But first, we have Ed. Go ahead, Ed. Mr. Ed.
Yes, good morning, Josh. I wanted to talk about people who can't save and who have trouble savings. Starting to save is a literal state of mind that says you're going to do this chore regardless. And people today are, how can I say, used to instant gratification. They walk through a store with a cart and they throw everything in the cart. That's no way to save. You can't have everything all the time. Nobody gets everything all the time. Even if you start to save by taking your coffee and donut to work in the morning and taking that $4 that you just saved and put it away, it's a start for the day. At least you have a perception of that you're moving forward. After a couple of months, you count out the money and you got a couple of $100. It's an initiative to go further. It's not an idea of now I have $200, let me go blow it in Walmart. I've done this myself. I've even thrown change in a jar to start with. Then it became taking coffee and cake to work. Then I took lunch to work. You save yourself today. I know you go out to the burger places, but you don't like theirs, so you eat your own. You could go for $15, $20 on what? A burger and fries with a piece of lettuce and tomato? You got to start doing that at home. You got to go to work for yourself. Become self-employed. Your self-employment is feeding yourself and saving yourself. Don't be lazy. A half hour in the morning, you make your coffee and donut. You want to make your lunch, you take your lunch. When you come home at night and you make yourself a little something, start breakfast, whatever you're going to have for breakfast, before you finish washing the dishes. By the time you finish, you will be saving yourself more than $100, $200 a month. You will not realize how much money you're actually, could I say pissing away?
I guess.
You're pissing away for nothing, over nothing.
So, yeah, this was fantastic, Ed. Any other comments on how to save for an emergency fund?
Well, I have a story a short story if you want to hear it.
Sure, I want to hear your story.
I like car mechanics, and at that time, I saved enough money, and I went to EJ Corvettes, and I put you remember EJ Corvette?
Yeah.
I went and I put a tool set on account. It was a very long line, and I was holding the tool set, and all the change I had saved rolled up. By the time I put that item on the counter, I already had a tool set. Maybe it wasn't all complete, but I still had one. And when I put that on the counter and they rang up that $54, it took me maybe at that time 3 months to save that $54. I told the cashier, I don't think I need this.
That's great.
And I walked out.
That's a great story. And that's like the old envelope method.
Control today.
Yeah, the envelope method or the glass jar. Well, it's tough when you're buying Starbucks and it's $8 for a Starbucks. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And if you go to every Starbucks, every coffee's different anyway. You can go to Costco, buy a bag of Starbucks, and make it yourself in the house. When you make it yourself in the house, you make it the way you want. It comes out the same every time.
There you go. Consistency and quality from Ed the barista. Be your own barista. That's a way to save. So thank you so much for the call. Ed, we're taking your calls at 800-321-0710. Do you have a story like Ed's of his EJ Corvette? EJ Corvette dates some people, you might have to Google what it is if you don't know. But we have a lot of listeners who remember EJ Corvettes. Rob has a comment on why people go to bankruptcy. So I want your question on two questions. Why do people go bankrupt? Is it medical debt? Is it overconsumption? Maybe another reason. And do you have a story of personal savings from nothing to 10,000? From nothing, as this man at EJ Corvettes, Ed, just said, $54. That's how you have to think. Because that's how I thought, my 20s. I remember, to me, making 30 grand a year, I felt rich because came from nothing. So whenever I made more than 30 grand my first, so many years of my 20s, I just banked it. And I didn't spend money on dumb stuff. So Rob, why do you think people are going into bankruptcy? Rob, go ahead. On Clubhouse.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, I would say it's definitely because they're over leveraged. A lot of people go into either have their expenses are too high or they invest too much. Because that was actually my case last. I would say just last year. So I was over leveraged, and then when the market was going down. It was almost like I was forced to sell because I was taking too much leverage. I was had almost like I had a loan of the from the bank, even though zero interest, but it's still a loan. And then also I had leverage in my brokerage account. And what it did is once like towards the end of the year, it was like. I just called there, so I'm just gonna sell everything, and then. But if I wasn't over leveraged, I would have been able to hold it and collect a lot of the gains that happened in the beginning of the year. But it's not for me. I always look at it like I'd rather not be over leveraged than be too over leveraged and then get into a very bad situation. Because I did still have my 401k invested, and I'm still in real estate, so I still got a lot of the gains. But that forced me into a tough area where if I was, let's say that was my lifestyle, that would be a time I would go into bankruptcy because I got the mortgage, I got the car, I have all my expenses. So if at the times ever got tough, I lost my job or anything like that, then that's when somebody over years of doing that the wrong way, they put themselves in a big hole. And I'll say that's when times gets tough and they got to go to the bankruptcy.
Yeah, no, thank you for your honesty. Over leverage. A lot of people, they go into debt thinking they're cool, thinking, hey, I'm going to margin. Not thinking you're cool like you're better than other people, but man, like you found the way to wealth. You're going to leverage and you're going to buy Bitcoin. You're going to leverage and you're going to buy crypto. You're going to leverage and you're going to buy stocks. And, I've only met, by the way, I've interviewed thousands of people a year for how many years, Jim? At least 15 years. I've only met one guy in that period of time who became a multimillionaire through leverage. One guy. Now you might say, well, real estate, 30-year mortgage. I'm not counting a 30-year fixed mortgage or a 15-year mortgage. One guy out of thousands of interviews of radio listeners who come in for a free review. And we have a lot of millionaire clients and I say, how do you do it? And generally it's avoid debt like the plague. Get out of credit card debt. Don't buy stock on margin. Don't buy, now crypto on margin. And I'll give you another tip. Do not buy any crypto except Bitcoin. There's no real use for any of them. So And I'm not telling you to buy or sell anything over the airwaves. We're not giving financial advice. But the point is, thrift is usually the way to wealth. And if you want to invest in that stock and you need debt to do so, maybe you don't buy that stock. Maybe you wait until you have some cash. Because here's the thing, Rob, if you had no margin, you wouldn't have had a margin call. You'd probably have those shares still today. But a lot of people, they get margin called. And I think what a lot of people do is they go on social media or radio and they listen to, in the 80s and 90s, it was Carlton Sheets. Today, it's, Grant Cardone and cash is trash and all these other things. Now they're all saying, cash is needed because they don't want to get sued by their listeners. But the point is that there was an expose on all these YouTube celebrities who were pushing crypto projects and companies like FTX, and then found out they were getting paid. And some were disclosing it, some were not. Or it was buried in the disclosures. So they were actually paid advertisers. And you put 10 or 20 grand in one of these, that 10 or 20 grand, think about how long it took you to save that. And that's the basis of your whole future millions. What was big for me was when I saved my first 27 grand. I don't know why, but when I saved my first 27K of cash, a light bulb came on in my brain when I had 27 grand in my emergency fund that I could grow my company and I was not as stressed about money anymore. So for me, it was 27 grand. For you might be 10 grand, 20 grand, 40 grand. The only way you do that is by avoiding dumb stuff. So next we have Mary, who's going to talk about gold and is it a good investment? We'll be back after these messages.
Maybe it seems like prices can't get much higher, or that the stock market is headed for bear territory.
Clubhouse,
or maybe
type
you're worried
in
about
the
another
chat
great
if
recession.
you can hear me.
Josh
And please
Jelinsky,
share
the financial
room.
quarterback, can help you protect
you
your
like
family's
no BS
financial future in
financial
times
planning,
like these. Tune in
now's
this
the time
weekend to the
chime
Financial
in.
Quarterback to hear how
Invite all
Josh
your
and his team
friends.
can help
We would
you
love to
decrease
hear
your
from you.
tax liability and lower your risk. Call 888-988-5674 to take advantage of Josh's 27-point plan to achieve financial health.
Personal
and when you
finance
call,
question
you'll receive
that
a
you
free
have,
copy of Josh's book,
but we're
Retirement
afraid to
Reality
ask.
Check. Tune in
We're
every
talking
weekend to the
credit
Financial
card
Quarterback and call 888-988-5674 to receive your free copy of Retirement Reality Check. Tune in to the Financial Quarterback Josh Jelinsky this weekend and learn how to protect your financial future in a down economy. Josh and his team at the Jelinsky Advisory Group can help you lower your taxes and lower your risk in these uncertain times with a 27-point checklist designed to improve your financial health. Whether you're worried about runaway prices, fear of an upcoming recession, or a stock market meltdown, tune in to the Financial Quarterback and count on Josh Jelinsky to call the play. For a free copy of Josh's book, The Retirement Reality Check, call 888-988-5674. That's 888-988-5674. Or visit Jelinsky.org. That's JALINSKI.org.
We're back. This is Josh Jelinsky, the Financial Quarterback. And then along comes Mary. Go ahead, Mary.
Hi, I was wondering about taking the money from the sale of a house, which is in a trust and is now invested in a bank for savings, and I want to buy gold with it. What do you think?
Well, number one, you need to talk to a tax advisor about what are the tax implications of selling stuff within a trust. But if a trust owns the bank account, the trust could sell it, and then you would pay whatever taxes gained on. But if the bank account really, if it's, you're just paying interest as earned, so you should be fine. But check with a tax advisor. Is it held by a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust?
It's an irrevocable trust, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay. And then for those of you listening, we're getting a lot of people. They're listening to Jimmy Baker pushing survival food kits. I mean, here's the thing, people. How gullible are you if you're, do you know, remember Jim Baker, Mary? The disgraced pastor with Jim and Tammy
yes.
Faye. This guy's now selling gold and emergency food kits. People are funny. And like, what's the point of gold? If the world goes to hell and we have CBDCs reigning in the land, gold will not be the ultimate currency. It will be food. So you get a lot of people say, oh, I want to buy gold. What is the utility of gold? Are you going to smelt it down? Because here's the thing. If we have CBDCs right now, how are you going to go to the grocery store with your gold bar? Think ShopRite's going to take your gold bar? Do you think Gennardi's or Safeway is going to take your gold bar? No. They're going to take the CBDC.
Well, and how are you going to go to the grocery store if your money's tied up in a bank?
No, well, you'll be given CBDCs, but the whole point is, if we got to we all have to take a deep breath and return from crazy town. Meaning, people want to buy gold because they perceive that they don't like what's going on in the world. And they want a mental security blanket a la toilet paper. Toilet paper makes more sense than gold if you're in a crisis because you need to wipe yourself. However, gold, what would gold have done in the pandemic when you were at the lines for grocery stores out the door? I'm not knocking gold. If you've been listening to me for years,
put all your eggs in one basket. I'm not saying put everything you have in gold. I'm saying this is from the sale of a house. And there's a lot of money, and I don't want to chance it in today's economy with today's president and everything that's going on. I don't want to chance it.
But that's my point. So now you're willing to buy gold, which is at record highs, which in a year or two from now could go lower as fear subsides. I think you need a financial plan first before you buy gold. That's number one. If you want to take 5% of your assets and diversify in gold just in case, I'm fine with that. I wouldn't really do more than that. But my thing would be, do you have a year's worth of food supply at the bank, at your house, like emergency food that you can get from Costco, cheaper than buying it off of Jimmy Baker's former disgraced televangelist's network? And I was talking to somebody yesterday. They're like, but I want to support, Jim Baker's. Well, okay, whatever. If you want to support him, that's fine. The guy, in my opinion, it's resigned from PTL ministry over a cover-up of hush money to church secretary Jessica Hahn for alleged rape. There were revelations of accounting fraud. He predicted the second coming of Christ and was wrong, then wrote a book about it called I Was Wrong. And now he's selling emergency food and gold. And you may not be watching him. I'm just saying you could be watching Glenn Beck. You could be listening to conservative radio. You could be, if they can take Tucker off of Fox. Or my point is, some of these people are really good salesmen or women, and they know how to play upon your fear. I have nothing wrong with gold as a part of the overall asset allocation. Does that make sense, Mary? If you want to have 5% of your money in gold, go ahead. But it's part of asset allocation and part of a financial planning strategy. Because if things are getting that bad, I don't think you'll be able to eat groceries without you using CBDCs. Does that make sense?
Well, except that I don't know what a CBDC is. I know what it's
central bank digital currency. It's what a lot of people are now using to promote gold because There have been, test balloons by the Fed where they're talking about the potential need of a central bank digital currency. And it scares me. I mean, I'll be honest, it's a scary proposition. But what I would recommend you do, Mary, is call us at 888-988-JOSH. We'll give you a free book when you schedule and keep your no obligation review at 888-988-JOSH. Okay, Mary?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for the call. And I'll talk more about your gold topics later in the second hour because I think it's important what you're bringing up. So thanks for the call. Next up, we're going to go to a break, and then we'll be back with Bruce. Go ahead, Bruce. Let's take a break, final break, and then we'll have Bruce. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial.
Maybe it seems like prices can't get much higher, or that the stock market is headed for bear territory.
If you're on Clubhouse, we're going to get to you, Jay Kem.
Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback.
If you bought gold within the last year, type a 1 in the chat box.
Tune in this weekend
if you don't
to the financial
like gold
quarterback to hear how
as
Josh
an
and his team can
investment,
help you
type 2
decrease your
in the
tax
chat box.
liability and lower your risk. Call
If you like gold, type 1 in the chat box. If you don't like gold, type a 2 in the chat box.
Point plan to achieve financial health.
I mean,
And
I
when
get
you
the
call,
appeal, but
you'll
what's it
receive
going to
a free
do?
copy of Josh's book, Retirement Reality Check. Tune in every weekend to the financial quarterback and call 888-988-5674 to receive your free copy of Retirement Reality Check.
Okay, we're back. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. We're going to go to Jay Kem. Jay Kem has a question. Next out, we're going to talk about index universal life policies. Good idea, bad idea, what you need to know about it. But first, Bruce, emergency funds for retirees. Go ahead, Bruce.
Good morning, Josh. Thanks for taking the call. Before I get to my questions, EJ Corvette was my favorite store as a kid. They had a great toy department, and I heard, I just don't know if it's true, if it stood for 8 Jewish Korean war veterans. So I don't know if that's true or not. Anyway, my question, I have 2 questions. One, I plan on retiring next year. I didn't plan on it, but I got an incentive, and I couldn't refuse it. So concerning the emergency fund, if somebody's RMD's Social Security and my wife's pension is the same as their salary when they retire, and since that's all guaranteed money, do you still need that same amount of money, in your opinion, in the emergency fund as you would as if you were still working?
So how much do you have, or how much are you talking about for an emergency fund?
As
3
far
months
as
of income?
Income between everything I mentioned would be about $200K.
So you have $200K in income or $200K in emergency funds?
No, in income, and a little more, but that would be the income in retirement.
So you have a pension coming in, and what are your expenses for the year?
It's probably 140.
I think if you had 140 in emergency funds, I'd be happy. I'd be fine.
Really? You think you need that much? Okay.
Well, because here's why. Then you can invest in the stock market or in gold or whatever you want to do. And if the market crashes, you have a year's worth of expenses in the bank. So you don't have to sell when everybody else is selling because you're fearful. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't have, none of this is, I shouldn't say none of it, but only 10% is in stocks.
But ideally, though, yeah, I mean, if 10% is in stock, it depends what the other money's in. If it's in annuities, bonds, cash. I mean,
yeah, it's all
maybe,
guaranteed stuff.
Maybe $70K, which is 6 months of your expenses.
Okay, now I feel better. I'm closer. The next question, if I could,
it's not, when you're retired, right, it's a little different because the emergency would be like your pension going defunct, your bank going defunct, whatever. Very slim to none chances where when you're working, your risk is more you lose your job. You get disabled. Right. Well, if you get disabled and you have a pension or an annuity, the money's still coming in as long as the company's around. So
Right.
it's less of a risk. So I'd be okay with 6 months in emergency funds.
If I can squeeze this little question in, we took a home equity loan out because we had this big expense, and we only ended up using half of it. And the question is whether to repay it or just keep it because it's, we have about $50,000 left in it at a 5.5%. And my feeling is, since it's tax deductible, the interest is tax deductible, and we're getting interest on it anyway, that it's worth just keeping. What are your thoughts on that, rather than paying it off?
I don't mind keeping debt as long as it's conservative at a fixed rate, and if you have money on the side that could pay it off. If it's a floating rate, pay it off. If it's going up to 5-6%, but it's a fixed rate at like 2.5% or something, and you're making 7 on something else or 5 on something else, and using a little safe conservative leverage, I'm fine with that in principle. But to each his own. And call us at 888-988-JOSH. Folks, if you're listening during the break, we got news coming up. Then I'm going to talk more about gold bugs, IUL, Fix the Next Universal Life, how to protect yourself from scammers. This is Josh Jelinski. Call me right now for our free review, 888-988-JOSH. Call us now. You get a free book, my free book, 888-988-JOSH, called Retirement Reality Check.
WOR and WAXQ HD2 New York, an iHeartRadio station. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app for all your music, radio, and podcasts.
As the day winds down, he's wound up with his take on the top stories. Jesse Kelly, weeknights 6 to 9. 710 WOR.
This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback.
An iHeartRadio station.
Type a 1 in the chat if you can hear us.
Good morning.
We're going to talk more about
police are saying 5 people
gold.
are dead after they were shot.
Is it a sucker's bet?
Houston. The shooting was reported about 11:30 p.m. local time in the town of Cleveland. The San Jacinto County Sheriff's Office received a call about harassment and found several gunshot victims when they arrived at the property. Authorities say the youngest victim was 8 years old. A search is underway for the shooter, who is still on the loose. And New York City is shutting down 4 parking garages, this because of structural concerns.
It comes more than a week after the deadly collapse in Lower Manhattan. The Department of Buildings was proactively sweeping dozens of parking structures after the collapse on Ann Street. The garages that were shut down are in Battery Park City, Coney Island, Chinatown, and Park Slope. DOB officials say the work is being done in the interest of public safety, adding all structures were immediately vacated. Natalie Migliori, WOR News.
And Mayor Eric Adams is demanding that FEMA crack down on states that are flooding New York City with migrants.
Adams says the Fed should stop sending grant money to pass-through states like Texas that are busing asylum seekers to the Big Apple. 1,300 in a 3-day stretch alone this week. More than 58,000 have arrived since last spring, when Texas Governor Greg Abbott began shipping illegal immigrants here. It's blowing up the city's budget, with New York spending more than $800 million on shelter, food, clothing, health care, and other services between July of last year and March of this year. Sarah Lee Kessler, WOR News.
The Met Gala taking place on Monday night at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City.
The biggest names in fashion, music, and entertainment will be attending and walking the red carpet on Fifth Avenue. It's always a who's who of celebrities, with each one trying to outdo the other with their over-the-top gowns and outfits. This year, they're honoring the late designer Karl Lagerfeld, who passed away at the age of 85 in 2019. The co-hosts for the event include Penelope Cruz, singer Dua Lipa, and tennis player Roger Federer. I'm Lisa G., WOR News.
In sports, the Yanks lost to the Texas Rangers 5-2. The Mets lost to the Braves 4-0, and the Islanders were eliminated by the Hurricanes in overtime 2-1. They lost the series in 6 games.
Here's your WOR Weather Channel forecast. Be prepared for some wet weather to be out about this weekend. There will be rain falling from this morning into the afternoon.
You would like to discuss or question, type it in the chat box, and I will bring you up.
And tomorrow will be a little bit warmer, but still wet with some showers and a high near 63. For Monday, partly to mostly cloudy with a high in the low 60s. I'm meteorologist Jeff Marr.
Currently, it's 51 degrees outside the WOR iHeart Radio studios here in Midtown Manhattan. Next news at 11,
Jim
breaking
Baker.
news at 1. Start your day with Len Berman and Michael Riedel in the morning, 6 to 10 a.m. I'm Jacqueline Carl on 710 WOR, an NBC News radio station.
Tired of losing money in the stock market roller coaster? Frustrated with the government taxing you into oblivion? Worried about inflation? How do you prepare for so many financial uncertainties? Welcome to the show that will help you develop your game plan. The Financial Quarterback with Josh Jelinski. Josh is a noted financial advisor and president of the Jelinski Advisory Group, and he's here to answer your questions. Call into the show at 800-321-0710. 800-321-0710. Now, let's kick off your financial future. Here's Josh Jelinski.
Okay, maybe we've hit a nerve. So, folks, you're concerned about your money. Get a second opinion on your wealth. Call us 888-988-JOSH. You know, too many of you are getting opinions from guys like me on the radio, but not getting a financial plan workup. Don't let opinions or products influence you from getting a financial plan. Get a financial plan first and then go for the products. Call us at 888-988-JOSH. If you call me now, 888-988-JOSH, you'll get our free book, Retirement Reality Check, 888-988-JOSH, and you'll get to meet me. Spend 45 minutes with our team for a 45-minute wealth strategy session, and it's called the 555 plan. You know how Herman Cain had the 999 plan? I'll get the 555 plan. 5 ways to reduce taxes in your portfolio, 5 ways to reduce risk, and 5 ways to reduce fees in your portfolio. We'll educate you in the various ways. But first, Greg, who says silver coins are better than gold. Go ahead, Greg.
Yes. Hi, Josh. Yes, the reason why I say that is this. If there's hyperinflation, and I mean, I'm not saying that that's going to happen.
There already is hyperinflation. A pizza's $26.
Let's say, don't want to take paper dollars. It might be hard to buy a bottle of juice with a gold bar, but that vendor, that store, might take a silver quarter, let's say 1964 and earlier. And what one should do is buy what they call junk silver, which means you're buying silver for the bullion value, not for the numismatic value. But in other words, you're buying it by weight, and these are generally silver dimes, quarters, maybe even half dollars that were minted up till 1964, because then that's when they took silver out of the out of the coinage, which I think also led to inflation, because like the Roman Empire, the same thing. They started devaluing the money by having less and less silver content in their silver coins. So I'm saying if somebody buys, let's say, a couple of pounds of the silver coins, they might be better prepared if there's really massive inflation where nobody wants to take paper dollars or this digital dollar foolishness, So.
Yeah, but who the heck's taking the silver?
Well, let's say that right now nobody, but I'm saying in the rare event that it became really, really bad.
Okay, so really bad means the government's
merchant might accept a silver dime for a loaf of bread, or a quarter or a half dollar, because the silver is really going up. What a lot of people don't know is 97% of the silver that's mined is used in various industrial processes. A lot of people don't know that. Only 3% is used in jewelry and tableware. So there's always a demand for it. It's never going to become totally worthless.
No, I'm not saying it won't. Okay, realize, as a part of an asset allocation strategy, if you want to have 5% allocated to gold or silver, I don't care. It's fine.
Oh, that's fine, yeah.
But what I'm saying is any more than that is just like, what are you going to do with it? And the theory goes, we're having hyperinflation, we're having mass inflation, and the government is forcing everybody to transact in 5 or 10 years via what's called the CBDC, a central bank digital currency. Why would they allow your conservative, grocery store If they didn't even allow, they don't even allow in New Jersey you to give away free plastic bags without having to pay for it. Or you couldn't go in a grocery store without wearing a mask. You really think those grocery stores are going to not comply with a CBDC mandate? Because eventually CBDCs, this is how I think it'll happen. CBDC, if you don't know what it is, central bank digital currency. What'll first happen is it'll be attached to some type of PPP. Remember the Paycheck Protection Program of 2020, which was basically the government giving money away at the hands of a Republican president, which was not fiscally responsible at all. So some Republican president probably will say, you know what, we have a crisis. We're going through another 2008, whatever it is. .com bubble bursting, new pandemic out of whatever, Asia, some other continent. And you know what? You got to stay at home again. But this time, in order to get your free handout from the government, you have to sign up for a CBDC. But it's easy. It's like Venmo. So you just download this app. It's called FedNow or Easy Cash, or heck, the government may partner with Venmo or Cash App or some other app that's already prevalently used, maybe Apple. And just like the government colluded with big business to basically shut everything down during COVID, and you could say that was necessary for health reasons. I'm not getting into that debate. What I'm saying is it will happen where a CBDC will be like, it'll be like EBT food stamps. Okay. You're going to get a card. You're going to get digital money, and people love it because you'll be able to use that. You could buy a $200 TV at Walmart, $1,000 TV at Walmart, and your kids can have Christmas, all because the government gave you a CBDC. Or AI takes over everybody's jobs. And you know what? Now we need to have a minimum income because if we don't, everybody will riot. So the CBDC is not like going to be introduced as a sinister plot. It's going to be like a convenient thing to get your tax refund. It's going to be like Venmo. So, but then eventually they'll say, you know what? We found drug dealers were using cash. We found the guy who, instead of the Wuhan lab, it'll be like the Toms River, New Jersey lab. You know what? The Toms River, New Jersey lab, they used dirty cash to transmit the virus. So, we have to ban cash now because it's not sanitary. And the CBDC is. And it'll be, posed as some type of health care mandate. Because now they've found, hey, we can link government control to healthcare or to food stamps or to CBDCs. And then what's going to happen is your grocery store won't be able to take any cash. And you know what? They won't be able to take gold. They won't be able to take silver. So that silver or gold really will be worthless. And if you really go down the rabbit hole of this, what will truly be valuable is like farmland, food, emergency food, ability to have water, ability to be self-sustainable. This guy I had on years ago called the suburban survivalist. And the idea was that, people in the suburbs should kind of learn basic survival metrics and not go crazy with selling their whole portfolio and buying gold. But, build a 3-month pantry, build a 6-month pantry, get a 3-month emergency food kit, because I remember people said all these things in 2008. And then they said it during the Obama presidency. Then they said it during the Trump presidency. Now they say it during the Biden presidency. So we often just kind of don't like what's going on in the world. And we hold on to these things like silver coins and gold, like we held on to toilet paper in the pandemic. There was really toilet paper didn't make sense. but it was just one thing we could control that made us feel a little bit more comfortable. So that's all I'm saying. Next, we're going to go to your questions at 800-321-0710. Is Greg still on with us? Or did Greg go? Okay. Well, thanks so much, Greg, for the call. We have the next. We have J. Kim says, are IUL insurance policies risky? How do insurance companies manage a policy like an IUL, which promise no downside to the policyholder? What can go wrong? Well, because there are a lot of levers an index universal life policy can pull. They can increase expenses. They can increase your premiums annually. They can raise the cost of insurance, and they can lower the caps. So there are a lot of levers to an index universal life. They're not too good to be true. An index universal life policy is a form of cash value life insurance where your money is indexed to the market but not in the market. So generally the fees are higher because they're offering some protection. But so generally an index universal life policy will promise no downside. But that is no downside if the stock market goes down. But what they don't tell you is the fees could increase due to a rising cost of insurance, increasing fees, and lowering caps. So I hope that helps you. Jay Kem would love to have you on if you had further questions on indexed life. So we're talking about gold, silver. We have a lot of people chiming in saying, hey, number one, I trust gold. Some people saying I don't trust gold. So Bakar, you trust gold? Do you want to comment on that? Will gold be accepted at your local grocery store? Go ahead, Bakar. You have a comment or question on that? Okay, next up, we're going to take your calls on All Matters Financial at 800-321-0710. We'll talk more about this whole subject of index universal life. Also, gold versus silver versus Bitcoin versus cash versus CBDCs. When we return, this is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial.
Tune in to the financial quarterback Josh Jelinski this weekend and learn how to protect your financial future in a down economy. Josh and his team at the Jelinski Advisory Group can help you lower your taxes and lower your risk in these uncertain times.
Type it in the chat. I'll go to you. I'm live on New York Radio, one of the biggest AM talk stations in the country, WOR.
Prices, fear of an upcoming recession,
the interaction on Clubhouse.
Tune in to the
Be
financial
sure to
quarterback
follow
and
the
count
house.
on Josh Jelinski
I really
to
don't know
call
what the heck
play.
Clubhouse
For a
is
free
doing with
copy of
these
Josh's
houses.
book, The Retirement
But I
Reality
generally
Check.
do shows
Call
every Saturday at 9.
988-5674.
And follow
That's
the house.
988-5674.
I have two houses because Clubhouse
or visit Jelinski.org.
gave me
That's
one and I built one before. It's a bit of a mistake.
Maybe it seems like prices can't get much higher, or that the stock market is headed for bear territory, or maybe you're worried about another great recession. Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback, can help you protect your family's financial future in times like these. Tune in this weekend to the financial quarterback to hear how Josh and his team can help you decrease your tax liability and lower your risk. Call 888-988-5674 to take advantage of Josh's 27-point plan to achieve financial health. And when you call, you'll receive a free copy of Josh's book, Retirement Reality Check. Tune in every weekend to the financial quarterback and call 888-988-5674 to receive your free copy of Retirement Reality Check.
Okay, we're going to the phone callers at 800-321-0710. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. We have Jimmy with a question on CBDCs. Go ahead, Jimmy. Unless you want to just type it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to get your opinion on this. So would assets or the value of assets, whether it's real estate, I know you mentioned farmland would be valuable, But in the event that you sort of the only way to pay for an asset or pay to use an asset is through the CBDCs, would that affect the value of assets itself just all across the board?
I would assume that it makes real estate more valuable, stocks more valuable, because they'll have to, if they do the CBDC charade, they will have to make people feel wealthy, kind of like the wealth effect that others on here have talked about. So if your real estate's worth $1 million and your 401k is worth $1 million, you'll feel a little richer. So I would see that real estate would be higher, stocks could be higher, your dollars could be worth less, but you kind of need the CBDC to transact. I think Bitcoin could be worth more because that's sort of a closed loop barter system where if you have all the users on the network be able to kind of transact, and you'll have, I guess, a black market with guys with their gold, silver coins. But I just think that'll be such a small fraction. I don't think gold or silver will be worth that much because people will be like, hey, I can't even use this anymore. So like, what's the point? And I think if FDR could confiscate gold in the 30s, why couldn't they confiscate it now? So where Bitcoin's more unconfiscatable if you hold the private keys. So I could see stocks, real estate, Bitcoin all fare well in this kind of dystopian CBDC that people are all worried about. But I don't see that silver or gold. I just don't see that, the average boomer going to the store, who doesn't like certain things, they're going to throw out, this guy with his barrel full of junk silver. Like, person's going to look at him at ShopRite or Safeway and say, like, what are you doing here, buddy? I have to report you now to the authorities. And just like you go to, if you try to take too much money out of the bank, they file a report. They'll file a report on the guy with the silver coins trying to buy. So like, if you have the silver gold, that'll probably be like a black market thing, like Bitcoin. I'm just conjecturing. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's not this utopian nightmare. I really think that we got to educate people on CBDCs so we reject it for as long as possible.
I think you sort of do underestimate the I guess the support of the black market, right? Because Bitcoin has reached, many all-time highs without Bitcoin being transacted, regularly as a currency, right? And I think gold, gold, not silver, but gold may experience the same thing. For those that have not adopted Bitcoin, they might be transacting, on the black market using gold to sort of circumvent the government surveillance.
Yeah, well, I don't think they'll escape government surveillance because they'll probably use supercomputers. I just think that they'll just want a degree of freedom like people have with cash today. It's not like the government doesn't track when people take money out of their bank. It's just, unless it's for something like money laundering or drugs, they kind of leave it alone. I mean, I don't know what I wonder though, as it relates to Bitcoin, how many people actually transact, not users, but people who will be able to transact on the blockchain. Like, how many really do transactions, private transactions today? I don't think a ton, but I know I read some stat, 106 million Bitcoin users, but I'd venture to say 2 million of those people actually know how to transact. So, I guess it could be a black market of 2 million people, but I don't have the stats there. Maybe you do, or somebody does.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. Right now in Nigeria, it's a lot of peer to peer, like a ton. And it's more so like the epicenter of the peer to peer transactions are like the money changers. I used to live in Nigeria, and so I needed access to U.S. dollar. And there are these guys that have wads of money in their pocket that'll do, those exchanges for you. The same thing that's happening in Lebanon. A lot of that is happening in Argentina as well. Everywhere where there's a currency issue, and yeah.
But that being said, there won't be a currency issue so long as we're the cleanest dirty shirt in the laundry pile. So we're still 60%. The U.S., for people who are worried about de-dollarization, I think it's going to happen slowly and gradually. You know, U.S. was 80% of the world's reserve currency 20 years ago. Now it's about 60%. The euro, surprisingly, 14%. People worried about China. China's only 3%. We have more to worry about the euro than the yuan, personally. Okay, next we're going to go to Jay Kem, who has a question on IUL. Do you like IUL as a part of a complete financial plans? The tax benefits of an IUL. I like the tax benefits of insurance. IUL has negatives when it comes to rising costs. You got to be careful in how you structure it. So if you need help structuring insurance, call us 888-988-JOSH. We'll give you a free 45-minute how to make sure you don't get screwed in IUL review, 888-988-JOSH. Next, Will has a question about long-term care insurance. And folks, we're taking your calls on All Matters Financial at 800-321-0710. So go ahead, Will.
Hey, Josh, I'm just curious if you help people with that as part of your portfolio of services. And the reason why I ask is I'm getting near the middle of the field myself as it relates to age. And I'm watching a lot of people, friends of mine, struggle to navigate and understand some of the long-term costs involved with their parents. So it's making me think of like my own plan and how to be prepared for that part or stage in life. But I'm seeing a lot of people around my age not understanding how to navigate Medicare and having seen that maybe in some cases their parents haven't prepared. Their parents may have resources, but they've underestimated what the need will be and how quickly the velocity of that need will be, if that makes sense.
Oh, exactly. I mean, we're dealing with certain clients. They're spending $100 to $200,000 a year on end of life care, and they're not. And some of them are not dying. They have Parkinson's. They have bad backs where they need round-the-clock nursing care because they have 23 broken vertebrae or something like that. Oh, yeah, totally. People underestimate what a debilitating illness, dementia, Alzheimer's. Now, you might say, I'm 30, dude. I'm 40. Why should I care about that stuff? Because the insurance is way cheaper if you buy it younger. And you can buy long-term care insurance. You could buy life insurance with a long-term care rider. You could buy a hybrid policy. Or you need to invest so that you have about $2 million saved when you're 65. So you need to be saving enough money where you could pay for a live-in nurse at 65 if you don't have long-term care insurance. But one of the reasons to get long-term care insurance is so that you don't have to use up all of your assets to take care of your end-of-life needs. Now, you get somebody say, well, why? How do you know the insurance company is going to be around? Well, you shop, you get an A+ rated insurance company. You can look at the ratings. You can buy it from a mutual company. You can audit those things. And yeah, we'll help you through that. Call us at 888-988-JOSH. I have operators standing by live to schedule your no obligation. What do I do to plan for end of life care? Because here's the thing also, if you have adult parents, who's going to take care of them? My mother and father passed away at 71, and the one who took care of them financially was me, because they didn't do a good job caring for themselves. They didn't do a good job saving for retirement. They didn't do a good job buying disability insurance. In fact, they bought disability insurance. They bought life insurance, but they canceled it when my father was disabled in his early 40s. So that's why you need insurance. It's not just because some insurance salesman tells you it's a good thing. But it's why you want a financial planner. We are fee-based fiduciary, so we'll give you a financial plan. We will show you, think of like a stoplight. Green means go, you're doing great. Yellow means caution here. You need some work on this subject. Red means stop, you're at risk. We have a 27-point checklist of things you need to make sure the government doesn't get all your money if you have an end-of-life illness. Should you do trusts? We'll work with your attorney. Should you do insurance policies? So we'll help you holistically. But that is such a good reminder, Will, that people they don't think about long-term care. Unless they see a parent lose everything, it's sort of like unless you see yourself having lost an inheritance because, and I get occasionally, I'll meet a gruff guy. I remember my good friend Charlie, and he would come into the office with a barely voice and says, if I'm going down, I'm taking a gun and I'm going to pull the trigger. I don't need long-term care. So the guy's long-term care plan was suicide. I mean, you really don't want that to be your long-term care. And I've heard this from about 1 out of 1,000 people every year. I don't know why. And you know what happens? They never commit the suicide because their kids won't let them. And by that time, they're a little bit senile, so they forget their plan. And this is not a joke, but suicide is a poor option for long-term care. And so get the insurance or have a plan with trusts and call us and we'll help you there. Any other questions on that, Will?
No, I think you nailed it. I just think that people in general ignore the statistical certainty that, they're not going to die. Most of us aren't going to be fortunate to, die in the tennis court after we have everything sort of tied up. And the realities of life are, it's not going to end the way you expect it to end. And this isn't something that people want to prepare for when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, hell, even in your 50s, until you see examples of it in your life that are cautionary tales. And so I was fortunate that my family prepared very well, had resources. Still, it's very difficult to navigate having those resources and that preparation. Still very difficult to navigate the day-to-day. But I'm seeing examples of people who didn't prepare and who thought they had ample resources. And I'm witnessing little tragedies on the landscape, and it's sad.
Yeah, and then
it makes me reevaluate.
Oh, and then you get people say, "Well, I don't need the insurance because I have $2 million saved, or $1 million saved." Well, do you really want to spend $200,000 a year on end of life care out of your assets that you were going to leave to your loved ones? So you're going to have a plan. If you have no plan, you could have the government's plan. You could have no plan, the government's plan, and they're about the same, which the government's plan is called Medicaid, and you are forced to spend all of your assets. Google it. It's called the Medicaid spend down. You're allowed to have like $10,000 to your name. Now, if you're older and you're worried about this, pay for your funeral. You could prepay your funeral. You could buy a car, and then you get to keep $10,000 for your name. You could do gifting to your loved ones. But if you gift and then you have something within the 5-year look back, they'll go after your kids for the money, the facility. So you have to plan. And being failure to plan is not an option. We'll talk more about that when we return. If you're on Clubhouse, type your question in the chat. We would love to hear from you. And want to thank you all for joining us on WOR 710 AM. Also, Spotify. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and more. Pick up the phone and call us with your financial questions at 800-321-0710. And if you want the free book, You'll get a free book when you schedule and keep your no obligation review. 888-988-JOSH. We'll be back after these messages.
Tune in to the financial quarterback Josh Chalinsky this weekend and learn how to protect your financial future in a down economy. Josh and his team at the Chalinsky Advisory Group can help you lower your taxes and lower your risk in these uncertain times with a 27-point checklist designed to improve your financial health. Whether you're worried about runaway prices, fear of an upcoming recession, or a stock market meltdown, tune in to the financial quarterback and count on Josh Chalinsky to call the play. For a free copy of Josh's book, The Retirement Reality Check, call 888-988-5674. That's 888-988-5674. Or visit Chalinsky.org. That's JALINSKI.org.
Okay, we're back. This is Josh Chalinsky, the financial quarterback. You know, financial planning is tough. So we are on Clubhouse. I have a new house. It's called The Financial Quarterback. So become a member of the house every week. And we would love for you to become a member. So join our club and type yes in the chat box if you enjoy what you're hearing. Or if you want us to change the topic, just type what you want us to talk about financially. That's the beauty of live local radio. You can call us at 800-321-0710. That's 800-321-0710. You get to ask me any and every financial education question. So if you have questions on stocks, bonds, annuities, mutual funds, we got topics also on YouTube. Somebody says, will they truly end paper currency? I think eventually. Somebody says, my parents have made me executor of their will. It's such a sensitive thing to talk about a trust. Any advice? Well, a will just distributes the assets. A trust, you could do an asset protection trust, Medicaid trust to protect their money from the Medicaid spend down. If you don't want to talk to it about your parents because it's sensitive, you don't want your parents disinheriting you because they think you're some type of greedy child, call us 888-988-JOSH and I'll bring it up with your parents. We'll get a Medicaid asset protection attorney to come on for free, give you a 15-minute consult. Sometimes they'll give you a free hour consult. So give us a call now, folks, 800-321-0710. We're talking about any financial education question you have, but are afraid to ask. Savings account interest rates just hit a 15-year high, but fewer Americans are benefiting. So is that you? I want to hear from you. Have you taken advantage of the higher interest rates? You know, you can get like 4.5% right now in a money market. Have you done so? If not, why? We can help you. Give us a call at 888-988-JOSH. We'll show you how to get better, higher interest rates on your bank products, CDs, money markets. We work with Fidelity and Schwab, where money markets are paying a great rate, also Interactive Brokers. Also, we're going to give you a guidance on capital gains tax. We're not giving you tax advice, but I'll talk about that. Choosing whether to rent or buy has never been a simple decision. And this ever-changing housing market isn't making it any easier. I want to hear from you, our listeners, in the chat box on Clubhouse. Do you want to rent or do you buy? Where do you send? Where are you on that kind of spectrum of renting or buying? We also get Jay, who writes, getting slammed on taxes this year. Already maxed out 401k with profit sharing plan. What else can be done that would significantly reduce your taxes? I'm in a high tax state. We could certainly help you. looking at a defined benefit pension plan. You could look at numerous retirement savings vehicles. There are other ways. Setting up a 401h might be helpful. Give us a call. Looking at insurance, looking at municipal bonds, looking at vast Roths, Roth Solo 401k. Give us a call, 888-988-JOSH, if you're sick of higher taxes eroding your portfolio. Now, would you want to rent or buy? With surging mortgage rates, record rents and home prices, and a potential economic downturn and other lifestyle consideration, there's so much to factor in. There's an extraordinarily unique market because of the pandemic and because there was such a run on housing that you have home prices that are very high. You also have rent very high, says Diana Olick for CNBC. By the numbers, renting is often cheaper. On average, across the 50 largest metro areas in the U.S., a typical renter pays about 40% less per month than a first-time home buyer based on asking rents and monthly mortgage payments, according to Realtor.com. In December of 2022, it was far more cost-effective to rent than buy in 45 metro areas. The real estate site found that's up from 30 markets the prior year. GT says, I'm renting. I'm in New York City. So I think it depends on where you live, right? So do you rent or buy? Type it in the chat. Share our show with everybody you know. Share it on Clubhouse. Also follow us on Twitter at YourFinancialQB. Make sure you also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leland and Stephanie recently purchased their first home in Cleveland for $285,000, or about $100K per square foot. Family of 7 will also have Leland's mother, who's been fighting breast cancer, moving in with them. By their calculations, this moves, which expands their space by a multiple of 3, and allowing them to take care of Leland's mother will be saving them more than $700 per month. So it really depends on where you live of whether renting or buying is the best decision for you. If that's you and you need help, call us 888-988-JOSH. You have to factor in monthly costs, homeowner's insurance, taxes, property tax. Now, personally, I believe that real estate market should probably slow, but I bought a second house last year too, so because my theory was if we had rampant inflation, hey, at least I have some land. But, you know, there's different calculations in there. Depends on whether you can afford it or not. Next, we have Joe, long-term versus short-term investments for seniors, and then Jay and David. Go ahead, Joe.
Yes, good morning, Josh. This is my question. I have a stock portfolio amongst many investments, and I'm 76 years of age, and the gentleman who is the advisor of this portfolio, I constantly keep buying. Well, I am buying lately REITs. One is Carl Icahn's IEP.
Okay, yeah, we're not mentioning symbols, yeah.
Oh, okay. And the percentage of the cost getting back in dividends is like 10 to 15%. And he keeps telling me, Joe, you know, you have to think of the long term. So I say to him, you know, I'm 76. There is no long-term strategy. And with this portfolio of about $350,000 in stocks, I'm getting back more than $30,000 a year in dividends, and I think that's pretty good. So the long-term, short-term, should I listen to him with long-term at my age, or should I be leveraging this for optimum income that I'm getting from it?
Well, I think the bottom line is, I mean, hey, I'm an expert in income investing from a standpoint of I know how to research stocks that pay good dividends, but there's a risk there. I could tell you numerous symbols that started out at $10 a share, paying ridiculously high interest rates, and then they literally were cut in half over the years. So the risk is that you're getting paid a good dividend, but your 350 becomes 175 because your share price goes down. So I guess it's a game of Russian roulette. It's nice to get that income. So I would say you have to blend income with appreciation when building a portfolio. You want some growth and some income. But, if I get clients who really want all high dividends, we focus on, instead of just relying on one or two of those high dividend pairs, let's build a portfolio of 20 or 30 or 50. Add some guaranteed stuff in the mix, like treasuries or fixed annuities, so that if the world goes to hell, at least you have 40% in treasuries or whatever, that your principal is protected. Does that make sense? I'd be a little worried that you wake up, because you might say you have 10 years to live and the good Lord gives you 20, Yeah, if you had 4 years to live, it probably doesn't matter. But you don't know how long you're going to live.
But then again,
and you may want to leave a legacy too.
Yeah, Josh, I have a 401k, and my pension is, $100,000 a year plus Social Security. So this is kind of like, I hate to use the term, not a plaything, but it's money I give away to charities and to groups. So I don't take the dividend. I just simply give it as charitable gifts.
Well, one of the things I would look, and that's why planning is important, is you may want to consider a charitable remainder trust, in that you're pledging that money to charity when you die, but you get a really nice income. So you could actually have the charitable remainder trust, own those stocks, and you get a great tax write-off for doing so, if that's some desire of you. So you definitely want to look into charitable lead trusts or charitable remainder trusts if you have charitable intent, because you actually get a better bang than just giving the proceeds to charity, depending on your. And that's.
Okay. I never thought about that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
We could give you a free charitable discussion, 45-minute review, 888-988-JOSH. 888-988-JOSH. We'll be back after these messages with David and Jay. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial.
Maybe it seems like prices can't get much higher, or that the stock market is headed for bear territory, or maybe you're worried about another great recession. Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback, can help you protect your family's financial future in times like these. Tune in this weekend to The Financial Quarterback to hear how Josh and his team can help you decrease your tax liability and lower your risk. Call 888-988-5674 to take advantage of Josh's 27-point plan to achieve financial health. And when you call, you'll receive a free copy of Josh's book, Retirement Reality Check. Tune in every weekend to The Financial Quarterback and call 888-988-5674 to receive your free copy of Retirement Reality Check. Tune in to The Financial Quarterback Josh Jelinski this weekend and learn how to protect your financial future in a down economy. Josh and his team at the Jelinski Advisory Group can help you lower your taxes and lower your risk in these uncertain times with a 27-point checklist designed to improve your financial health. Whether you're worried about runaway prices, fear of an upcoming recession, or a stock market meltdown, tune in to The Financial Quarterback and count on Josh Jelinski to call the play. For a free copy of Josh's book, The Retirement Reality Check, call 888-988-5674. That's 888-988-5674. Or visit Jelinski.org. That's JALINSKI.org.
If you could all become a member of the house, that'd be great. So click on the house, The Financial Quarterback, and if you can become a member of the house on Clubhouse, that'd be great. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. If you have questions on stocks, bonds, annuities, next up we have David with a comment on the whole renting versus buying situation. Go ahead, David. David, go ahead. Had a lot of good comments in the chat.
Hey there, Josh. No, I was just mostly, joining the panel to a ping. I'm actually going to probably be breaking my signal in a minute. But anyways, no, I'm happy to comment on any of the things I mentioned in the chat. I I'm seeing quite a bit, though. It was interesting. I was at the park a couple weeks ago, noticed, a pair of couples. It was, 4 people trying.
Okay, you're in a bad spot, so we'll get to you when you're in a better spot. Just let me know. You're cutting in and out. So, folks, renting versus buying. Do you have a comment on that? Dividend investing, 800-321-0710. We also talked about what kind of emergency expenses lead to bankruptcy. I started out the show today talking about a stat. 24% of you have saved nothing for retirement or any emergencies, period. And then a Lending Club stat said that 1 in 3 people don't even have $400 for an emergency. 39% of you have less than 1 month's income saved for retirement or emergencies. And we started thinking, how do you build that emergency fund? So if you have an experience that you'd like to share of how you built your emergency fund, would love to talk to you. Type it in the chat box and we'll go to you. And then we will also talk about your questions. Call us at 800-321-0710. Had a wonderful story. If you're just joining us, I'm Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback of a guy who saved $54 in, pennies. Went to the old discount department chain, kind of like Kohl's today. It was called EJ Corvettes. I'm a little too young to remember EJ Corvettes. Are you too young to remember EJ Corvettes? Jim? Just a little too young, Jim. So EJ Corvettes was like, Woolworth or Bamberger's, and kind of dates people, but it's an interesting story of how companies like Kmart go out of business, EJ Corvettes go out of business. But this guy saved $54. He went to the discount department store. He was all ready to buy a nice shiny set of new tools, put all his pennies on the counter. Guy was probably really annoying to the person at the counter. The person at the counter counted up $54 in pennies. And then the guy goes, nah, I don't want to buy it. Because he worked so hard for that $54. So if you got to save pennies, if you got to stop going to Wawa or Sheetz or Quick Check or Starbucks, because some people, they go, you know what, I'm financially responsible. Instead of going to Starbucks, I go to Wawa. I go to Dunkin'. Now, yeah, Starbucks is a supreme waste of money. But so is Wawa. So is any convenience store. This guy talked about bringing cake to work. May I add, maybe don't bring cake. I mean, or donuts. Lose some, you don't need all those calories. Take up intermittent fasting. And you don't need to eat, they've done studies, 16 hours of the day. But I try to do that, but, I get kind of cranky. So I have to eat sometime in the middle of the day. So, folks, give us a call. Most individuals, 60% that experience financial distress, experience it once and then never again. However, there's a small minority of people. So 10% of all people will experience 3 or more periods of distinct financial distress in their lifetimes. Now that we have looked at what kinds of emergency expenses lead to bankruptcy and how overconsumption seems to be the biggest contributor to this, I want to examine how much people tend to save for emergency funds. But first, we will go to Mary. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, hi. Good morning. I was thinking about buying some treasury bonds for my 17-year-old grandson, but now after hearing you talking about the CBDC, is it worth it? How's the government going to handle that if you have treasury bonds?
Well, the government's debt is when you buy the treasury, so I think you're fine if you buy treasury, but your grandkids are young. Buy them an index fund, buy them ETFs, buy them stock. let them see the power of compounding over 30 years, 20 years. You know, treasuries are more for people who are very conservative. I mean, treasuries aren't bad, but
so when you say an index fund, I mean, what about? I was thinking about what is it? The FedEx. Is that a good?
Well, again, that's buying one stock. So you have what's called single stock risk. So that's generally a bad thing to put all of their money in one stock. Because then if that stock goes under, and I mean, I don't think they're going under, but, you know, generally you want to teach them principles of sound investing. If you have a kid or grandkid and you want help for them, call us 888-988-JOSH. Okay, Mary? I got to take our final break of the hour, but Mary, you can hold on if you have another follow-up question. This is Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback. Don't touch that dial.
Maybe it seems like prices can't get much higher, or that the stock market is headed for bear territory, or maybe you're worried about another great recession. Josh Jelinski, the financial quarterback, can help you protect your family's financial future in times like these. Tune in this weekend to the Financial Quarterback to hear how Josh and his team can help you decrease your tax liability and lower your risk. Call 888-988-5674 to take advantage of Josh's 27-point plan to achieve financial health. And when you call, you'll receive a free copy of Josh's book, Retirement Reality Check. Tune in every weekend to the Financial Quarterback and call 888-988-5674 to receive your free copy of Retirement Reality Check.
Okay, we're back. We'll talk more after the show on YouTube about the whole topic of gold versus CBDCs. As we finish the discussion, though, a lot of what we're talking about may seem confusing to you. You may want to learn how to start investing. You may have saved a lot of money. And on our 555 plan, we will review your portfolio, your top 5 holdings from a standpoint of fees, risk, and taxation for free. All you got to do is call us at 888-988-JOSH. Free 45-minute review. 888-988-JOSH. We would love to hear from you. If you're on Clubhouse, you can raise your hand, come up on stage. We will ask your question. Now, Clubhouse is an interactive app, kind of like talk radio. So we're live on WOR 710 AM right now. YouTube, we're going to continue the discussion on YouTube and Clubhouse after the live show, radio show. But so we were talking about, why do people not build an emergency fund? How do people experience financial distress? And some of the reasons were medical debt and overconsumption and financial hardship. But how much do typically people save in their emergency fund? When it comes to saving for emergencies, the typical American doesn't save all that much. As this March 2022 report from the CFPB demonstrated, 24% of consumers have zero saved for retirement. And this is why they're going to fall for a CBDC. Because, hey, if you get that $1,000 TV at Walmart and you get to buy colon cleansing quantities of almonds at Costco, you know what? You're going to go for the CBDC, right, Jim? Yes. You're going to, because the average person is kind of a sucker. Don't take that the wrong way. Saying 39% have less than a month income saved. 37% have a month or more income saved for an emergency. The data suggests that approximately 44% of consumers have less than $1,000 saved. So if you have zero saved for emergencies, your first goal should be the number 1,000. Then your next goal should be 2,000. Then 4,000. Then 10,000. Then 20,000 in cash in the bank. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 because you should save your money. Because government can't save you and probably won't save you. And all of these things that the government did for COVID, you used to be able to buy a pizza for $10. Now it's $25 for a good Italian pizza, right, Jim? Yeah. You go to a pizzeria, you used to be able to get $10. So you don't think it's you might say, oh, I got a PPP money free. I got a ERTC. I got food stamps. I got whatever the thing they were giving, the stimulus, the COVID stimulus. I'm not paying for it. Yes, you are. You're paying for it every time you go to the grocery store. Every time you buy a pizza. It's inflation. It's a stealth tax on the dumb person who votes themselves. It's like the ancient Roman Empire. Give us bread and circuses. So, folks, I'm joining in on the fun, just like the government. We're giving a free 45-minute review session. So come on in for our freebie, 888-988-JOSH, 888-988-JOSH.
Program was sponsored by the Jelensky Advisory Group.
Okay, we're going to drop
awards,
a
rankings,
link.
or recognition by
Can somebody
unaffiliated
drop a
third
link
parties or publications,
in
including
the,
5-star Wealth Manager, Advisory of the Year finalist by
Can somebody
Senior
drop
Market
a link
Advisor,
in
and
the
top of
chat?
the $1 Million
Just if
Roundtable
you
are in no way
search
indicative of
on
the advisor's future
YouTube
performance
for
or
the
any
financial
individual
quarterback
client's
and hit
investment
subscribe,
success.
you'll be able to
No
see it.
award, ranking, or recognition should be
So,
construed
I wanna
as a
hear
current
from our
or past
listeners
endorsement of Josh Jelensky or
on the
Wealth Quarterback
subject
LLC.
of gold
Information regarding specific awards, rankings, or
silver
recognitions is
versus
available on the Wealth
CBDC.
Quarterback
I would
website at
posit
jelensky.org. All investment strategies have the potential
that
for
I'm gonna
profit or
have this
loss.
disclaimer
Investment
play.
strategies such as asset allocation,
And then
diversification,
we'll
or rebalance.
go to your questions. We're on Clubhouse, so type your question in the chat. So now it's a normal Clubhouse room, also on YouTube. Listener feedback. What do you think? We got Bakar, we got Davis. Do you have any questions or comments on the Bitcoin versus gold versus CBDC discussion? Go ahead. Anybody? Chime in. And please join our house. We had over 124 people in and out here, 42 people right now, many more on YouTube. So, folks, if you can become a member of the club, we would love to hear from you. Talk on Clubhouse if you have a question. I'll stay around for 5 more questions. Anybody want to talk? We got David, Bakar, Davis, Will, T. Anybody even a question on that?
Hey, Josh. Happy to talk.
Go ahead.
I'm out walking about right now. So yeah, interesting. I posted a tweet about a week ago, and exactly on silver, right? My article or my tweet was about 1954. I pulled out a 1954 silver quarter, right? And there was a restaurant, I think it was called Danny's or something like that. I forget the name of the burger place, but they had opened up their store in 1954. And the price of a hamburger in 1954 was only 19 cents, right? And so they were, in celebration of that, they were rolling back their prices to 19 cents for a day. And what's funny is you go look at their menu. Their menu right now is approximately $5 to $6 for a hamburger, right? But the thing is if you go look at a quarter from 1954 that was originally in silver, and you look at the silver value of a quarter right now, it's about $6 right around, give or take some change. And literally, that silver quarter in terms of silver value has held its value, to the price of that hamburger and the price of beef. There's a great book called the Bitcoin Standard that actually goes over this and talks about the cost of living and various costs throughout the world. If you actually, revalue those costs based in gold terms, we actually haven't seen costs go up all that much, right? It's the fact that we debased our currency and bring that value down as to why all these costs seem to go up over time. So I just think, it's an interesting illustration.
Yeah, but if you look at, silver, what's the silver price chart? I don't think it's done much in 10 years.
I think it's like $28 or something like that an ounce. I mean, give or take.
I mean, wasn't it that 10 years ago? I don't know.
Yeah, I know, right? But the thing is, though, I might argue that maybe we're seeing some price manipulation in the markets. I was actually having a discussion with ChatGPT this morning about this because we know that the BRICS, is about right now. The BRICS was originally started back, I think, in 2006. We're seeing more countries join the BRICS. A lot of the currencies in the BRICS are actually backed by gold. And if I'm losing signal, I apologize. If I'm breaking up, let me know. a lot of the currencies, though, in the BRICS are backed by gold. And so the question is gold or silver being manipulated, to keep strength of the dollar? Because if we allow gold to go up and other countries are using gold to back their currencies, that will dramatically weaken the dollar. So it just depends on, how that plays out long term. Obviously, some of us are Bitcoiners in the room. And so, I hold both gold and Bitcoin, just because I see both as a potential hedge for dollar debasement over time.
Yeah, I don't mind people buying a percentage in gold or silver if they want to. My just theory is if we have this dollar debasement, like nobody's going to be smelting gold or silver. They're gonna give in to the CBDC, and I could more see a world where there's a black market of Bitcoin than a black market of gold and silver, because just there aren't a lot of people who transact in gold or silver, except if you're above a certain age, and nobody transacts in it anyway.
In my world, I quite frankly use USDC temporarily. And at least in the space of DeFi, I see that as, Gary Gensler might have his own opinion, because I think he believes that USDC is potentially a money market. But the thing is right now, Circle, I think, has mentioned about, the possibilities of what if the Federal Reserve was to hold their assets because of the recent issue that happened at Silicon Valley Bank that caused USDC to depeg. It's a slippery slope. If they were to be able to deposit directly with the Fed, could a USDC eventually be a CBDC in some form? It's on multiple blockchains. We have this Fed now. I don't think it's compatible with the Fed now, but I wouldn't, I have to imagine that at some point it wouldn't be hard to incorporate the two, considering it's just digital technology.
No, interesting points. Thank you for your comments. Folks, if you have a question or comment, I'd love to get listener feedback on the gold versus silver versus CBDC versus Bitcoin discussion. We'd love to hear from you. Feel free to unmic, state your name, and what you want to talk about as it relates to money. Could also be the whole IUL tax-free discussion as well. That's interesting. Could be the emergency fund discussion. Would love to hear from you. Any questions or comments? We'd love to talk to you. Go ahead. We have Storytella. Go ahead. We have Story who had a question, and also somebody named Get It Done Now. Okay, but we'll see first. Go ahead, Will.
Hey, Josh.
Hi.
Could you, for me, so I had a family member who had an advisory, a financial advisory, and without getting into it, I participated in that advisory, didn't fully understand how they were getting paid and how they were representing my interests. So I'm going to ask a high-level question, which is, can you at least draw a distinction between yourself and other people that are in the business like you? Or could you get into more specifically what a fiduciary is and why that's unique, different, special?
Well, yeah, there's a whole discussion on fiduciaries versus brokers. So I think the term financial advisory may not even be helpful. But how do you know you're dealing with a fiduciary? A fiduciary is somebody who is supposed to act according to your best interest and disclose conflicts of interest in their Form ADV. So you know you're dealing with a fiduciary if they are using a Form ADV where they will list out their conflicts. So, for example, I'm a fiduciary, but we also, anyone has conflicts, right? Conflicts of interest. So, for example, if you buy a life insurance or long-term care insurance product or an annuity, that is deemed a conflict. So we disclose that we make a commission and we do not charge a fee on those assets. On stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and whatever, treasuries, bonds, we have all fiduciary products, meaning we do not make a commission. We charge a flat fee, generally around 1%, to help you with your affairs. And we provide holistic financial guidance and planning. How do you know you're dealing with a fiduciary? Well, you ask to see their form CRS and their form ADV. If they don't have an ADV or they look at you with a blank stare, they're not fiduciaries. So it's not like, okay, if you have a CFP or you have CFA, now we have CFPs, CPAs, CFAs, CFPs, and CPAs that all work for me. And that's great, but that's one sort of lowest common denominator. And then generally, somebody should disclose what they're making off of you. I mean, we do. We tell people, hey, this is what we're making on this. And so there's what our agenda is. Does that make sense? I mean, generally, we want a fee-paying client. That's my agenda. So that way, we provide value, educational, coaching. And people say, well, I'm a do-it-yourselfer. I believe in buying index funds. So that's great. So do I. But which index funds do you buy? What research do you have? Do you have an investment committee of 5 people? Are you knowledgeable on insurance? Are you knowledgeable on holistic planning? Do you know when you need a trust attorney, when you don't? Do you know when you need long-term care, when you don't? So it's not just about, okay, I can stick all my money in the S&P 500 index fund. Well, that's great. Idiot can do that. That's fine if that's what you want to do. But there's going to be a time when you need an advisor. It could be a death of a loved one. It could be, and for my clients, those who are paying clients get my time and attention. Now, I do offer a free 45-minute wealth strategy session for any of you wanting one at 888-988-JOSH. But, I'm not unclear about our motives. So if you dealt with a financial advisor, he was a family member or friend, and they didn't tell you how they were getting paid, shame on them, shame on you for not knowing what questions to ask. No offense, Will, but you know what I'm saying. So I think a lot of the times, like there's a lot of people pushing IUL or cash value insurance, and that can certainly have merit for people, but they need to have a balanced appraisal of any product. What are the pros? What are the cons? And don't be sold or want to be sold. Pick someone with a teacher's heart who's going to educate you, and then you make the best decisions. Does that make sense?
Josh, I think that final point, and I would almost repeat that, is the essence of the message right there, which is, yeah, I don't want to repeat what you just said, but that is the most relevant and salient point.
Yeah, and I get it that a lot of us hang out in Bitcoin circles on Clubhouse and, Bitcoin rooms because we believe in sound money and we believe in getting rid of intermediaries when it comes to us and our money. I agree with that in theory, totally. But I would say even if you're a Bitcoiner, you need a Bitcoin friendly financial advisor who's going to say, okay, control your own keys. But I will tell you, a lot of people, 90% of people I talk to, they don't even know how to do that. So getting them off of zero is a step. And then not getting them to sell and getting people to hodl. I mean, if it was just as easy as buying index funds and doing nothing, everybody would be rich. But it's not that easy because people die. They get divorced. They get disabled. And I came up with a plan to hodl. And I would argue that you can hodl Bitcoin or stocks if you have a sufficient emergency fund of, I would say, at least 1 to 3 years. I said before the last bear market on Clubhouse, Bitcoin rooms and was laughed at by the likes of Bitcoin Teen and others who've completely, revealed themselves. And I said, if you really want to hodl, you have no clue what's coming. So you need to have 1 to 3 years of cash at the bank. And people laughed at me like I was some sort of idiot. And if you had 1 to 3 years of cash in the bank or at your house or whatever, if you didn't trust the bank, put it in your house in a safe, you would be able to hodl because you can then have money to weather a bear market in stocks or Bitcoin. If you have 1 to 3 years, I talked about this in my book called Retirement Reality Check, years before the crash, 2019, before the 2020 crash and 2022 crash. I said, have a volatility buffer, 1 to 3 years of cash. That's financial planning. Now, you may not like your financial advisor buddy who you went drinking with at college because you're like, that guy's an idiot. I wasn't an idiot. I was studying until 2 a.m. every day of my life in my 20s. Woke up at 6 a.m., went to bed at 2 a.m., built my company, studied. So I know, okay, which index fund did better than the S&P over the last 20 years, last 50 years, last 100 years. And I could run circles. So if you have an advisor who likes index funds, even Vanguard did a study. I want everybody to Google it, called Vanguard Advisor Alpha. And it said a index fund friendly financial advisor can contribute 3% of alpha, that's excess return, over the normal person. So, and I would say it's much more than that. You know why? When I get people who are index fund people, it's generally because they don't trust anybody, so they don't trust the government. So then when a person of a political party that you disagree with, then you sell everything. Exactly what happened to Bitcoin Tina. Bitcoin Tina is a perfect example, and it was so great that we all met him, of what not to do. And I'm friends with him. He's a nice guy to me. He's always been nice to me. Smart guy. But brains is not eloquent, passionate. But brains and certainty is not where you should put your money. Tony Robbins talks about the sin of certainty. That basically, if given a choice, I don't know, Google this, Jim. He talks about 4 basic human drivers. Does anybody know this? Do you know the 4 basic drivers by Tony Robbins? One is certainty. One is like meaning and giving. I forget the other 2. But he basically says the reason why most people live mediocre lives and never achieve their dreams is they privilege certainty above all else. So I've seen it, by the way. I've seen the greatest guests are the most certain of what's to come. But if you track what these people say, never comes true. It's like Jeff Snyder, right? Jeff Snyder, great, eloquent guest. Love Jeff Snyder. Lacey Hunt, love Jeff Snyder. But why do we love them? Because they give us certainty in an uncertain world. That's fundamentally what it comes down to. But it was funny when I actually would look and see, well, what does Jeff Snyder's firm invest in? Alhambra. I don't think he's with Alhambra. They invested in like Microsoft and Apple stock, and nothing wrong with that. But that's sort of against what he was preaching of a great deflationary spiral. So I would argue that the people you should be listening to who are financial advisors are ones who are sort of uncertain. Now, people say, well, all they just tell you is diversification. The average financial advisor is an idiot. Diversification, meaning having many different things in many different baskets, is dumb. But if you diversify trading strategies, if you diversify asset strategies, so for example, if you have 100% of your money and you have 1 to 3 years of cash, 5% Bitcoin, 5% gold, I'm not giving investment advice, 40% US-based ETFs, 40% whatever, and the balance in individual stocks, so you can play around, buy some things that you like. I would venture to say you'll weather anything. because you have that 1 to 3 years of cash. And you have the 5% gold, 5% Bitcoin, or you could do 10 because you are planning for a wide variety of scenarios. The cash is protecting you from deflation. Gold, stocks, Bitcoin protecting you from inflation. Buying a second home. So, I want to tell you, no one's exactly certain, right, what's going to happen. So a good financial advisor will try to get you alpha. So this is a great article. August 12, 2022 white paper says, putting value on your value, quantifying advisors' alpha. This research paper delves into the concept of Vanguard's advisors' alpha, which outlines how you can add value or alpha through relationship-based services such as financial planning, discipline, and guidance rather than by trying to outperform the market. So I'm not saying somebody goes to me, they're going to beat the S&P. I'm going to say, you know what? I'm here for you when you're depressed because your kid died and you don't even want to look at your portfolio for 3 years. That happens. I had a child die in 2016. I didn't want to look at my money. And I missed out on bull markets. And frankly, I should have had somebody that I paid for to give advice because I didn't even want to think about my own money. I just had the bandwidth to serve my own clients. And then I get some people say, it's funny, when I talk about faith and God, they'll say, oh, don't talk about that. Well, that's what gets me through life. If you want to, be not whatever, it's on you, buddy. It's between you and God. I'm not telling you how to believe. But the point is, that's why I talk about it. It's part of my life. It effuses from the heart. So I would say there's 5 or 6 times where you need an advisor: divorce, death of a loved one, death of yourself. Like if you're the financial brains in your family, who is taking care of your spouse? Because generally, like my wife, she's not into this at all. I said, honey, what's going to happen if I die? She says, I don't care. I'm going to go to Chris. You've trained him. You've groomed him. She has no financial care in the world. She trusts Chris. Now, she knows a lot. But I groomed Chris since he was 21 to kind of take over for me if anything were to happen to me. And we have Chris, Jim, and Tom. They could probably take over if I'm not around. Right, Jim? That's correct. And then give my wife a check or something, or buy her out of the company. So we have a business continuity plan. That's important. Is your advisor's business continuity plan, stuff like that. But do you have a business continuity plan? And you know what? I get people say, oh, I have $2 million. I don't need an advisor. You know what? I'm not going to pay a fee. You know what? If your wife goes through trauma and needs to talk to somebody for 10 to 12 times a year to feel comfortable because you were her financial security blanket, my fee is well worth it. But most advisors will give you a free hour or 2 or 3 to pick their brain. So somebody says, am I recording this? I don't think I am. Actually, are we live on the YouTube? So we'll keep it up for you live on the YouTube. Is it a separate YouTube or is it the one from this morning? It's the one from this morning. So subscribe to my YouTube and you can see the gems. You're right. It is gems, but I'm not that popular. I mean, it's funny. In New York radio, very popular, but on social media, because I guess I'm not that certain, I never got the following that Bitcoin Tina had or Joe. Joe's a good friend of mine. But why do people love hearing Joe Carlasari? He gives certainty in the midst of uncertainty. But I remember I had the opportunity to buy this amazing investment right in the middle of COVID. I had Lacey Hunt on, and I didn't because I was so lost in a depressionary vortex of deflation that I said, you know what, the future's too bad. So I missed out on one of my greatest investments ever, by the way, ever. There was a mudslide going on in this particular spot of Hawaii that's like Malibu. And I literally could have got the house for 50% off because it's a lot of rains and the people, it was in the middle of COVID. That house today would be worth double. I would have made 100% rate of return in 3 months, 3 years, if I didn't listen to Lacey Hunt. Now, you will get people like John Fakuri and Joe say, they're not giving investment advice. No, none of us are giving investment advice. But we always let the certain person guide us. It's something within us. So even if like you don't believe in God, you get authorities external to yourself that you can hang your hat on. Does that make sense? And I would say that's the echo of the divine in all of us. I would actually say that's proof of divinity. And you even listen to an atheist or an agnostic. Well, who do you read? Well, I read Ayn Rand. I read their Bible's Ayn Rand. Their Bible is Stefan Molyneux or, whatever. Their Bibles themselves, it's like Descartes. I think, therefore I am. The self becomes the God in essence, the reference point. But we all look for people who are smarter than us as external reference points. It's kind of how we are wired. And I bought two of my greatest investments were, well, we'll see. My commercial building that I bought 50% off from a bank when nobody wanted it. And then my house I bought when no one wanted it from a bank. And then I bought market when Obama was elected, a year or two later. Everybody was fearful with Obama. So I just started hodling, low-cost funds. I have a little portfolio that I developed for clients. It has done very well by me internally. Barely look at it. Look at it like 4 times a year. And it just has grown. And kind of my hodl stack. Then I hodl my personal stacks of other things as well. So,
hey, Josh,
David, go ahead. Yeah.
Want to add real quick, one of the biggest things, and I mentioned in the chat, the biggest things about having cash is that it opens you up to those opportunities when you see that 50% discount in the market. So that way you can actually buy those. Because if you don't have that cash sitting aside and available, then you're going to be forced to choose which asset you want to sell in order to take up that opportunity. And you may be taking, you may not be able to do that at the time that you're looking for.
No, that's fantastic. We should do a radio show called The Best Investments We Never Made. That might be another show.
Yeah, that'd be a sad one.
And the idea is, why do I say that? I think the lesson is, don't listen to the experts, stack cash, and then deploy it when everybody else is scared. So, a month ago when the banking crisis, boom, great opportunity to deploy cash. What did the experts say? We had 3 or 4 on. They scared the heck out of everybody. But that proved to be a good buying opportunity. So the experts usually get it wrong. Now, why do I do a show? Why do we have experts? We like to hear it. It's not, we don't have to be robots, but just knowing thyself will help you not make dumb financial decisions. And the other thing is, we've all, GT wrote this, I knew I wasn't losing my mind when I went up against Bitcoin Tini. He was more passionate than anything. Admirable in that regard, because I've never been that passionate about anything. Isn't that true, GT? Thank you for your honesty. It's belief, right? It's almost like a faith. And like, Bob Dylan, we all worship something. Somebody said everybody worships something in the chat. Bitcoin Tini, what do you worship? He worshiped his own opinion. And you'll hear that about various people, and those people will develop big followings. And I would say it's the sin of certainty. And I talked to another listener friend of my radio show, and she was so depressed this week because Tucker Carlson was off the air. But then last year, she forgets that she said, hey, buy a bunch of treasuries and keep cash because Biden was president and she didn't want to invest. So there are themes that I like. One would be don't let who's ever in the White House distract you from your financial goals. The other would be don't let the loudest voice distract you either. Because, I could tell you there were 3 investments I didn't make over the last 5 years that would have netted me millions, by the way. Because I was scared.
Josh.
I was scared. I knew a guy who was in trouble in Rumson, right? He was a guy, beautiful home, 50% discount. And I was going to buy it, but I got scared because everybody was moving from Rumson to Florida. And that house today would be worth like $10 million. Imagine that, Jim. But, okay, go ahead.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
I think another thing, like one of the biggest things that I've seen as a frustration on my part in dealing with myself is also when you see unrealistic returns, being aware that it's okay to take profits, right? I saw some really great gains during COVID. And unfortunately, because I didn't want to pay the heavy taxes that I was already paying, I didn't want to take additional profits where I probably should have to give me that larger buffer of cash flow right now as the whole market pulls back. And I think that's, when you see some of those gains, you have to be okay with also taking those gains and putting that money aside, right? And as a redistribution, rebalancing your portfolio. And I think that was one of my biggest hurdles over this last season. I felt like I was taking enough and ended up I took enough to pay all the taxes, but I didn't take enough to put off to the side, right? And I think that's, rebalancing that portfolio into a cash position is also helpful over time.
And if you want a free financial modeling session, 45 minutes with me, DM me the word free and I will get somebody to help you there. It's a complimentary session. Obviously, I want to grow my business, but we give a 45-minute value-laden conversation just like this and become a member of our house. Apparently, with Clubhouse's new dynamics, if you're not a member of the house, you really don't see the rooms. So you might have said, well, Clubhouse has changed. I don't like all the Clubhouse changes, but if you have the ticket by your name, it means you are sort of a listener, not a member. We don't spam people, and I do like 1 or 2 rooms a week, generally every Saturday at 9, and then impromptu sessions. We also did a great YouTube with Gerald Salenti. I don't know if it's still up. And you also got to realize some people love to hear themselves just speak. I remember I was in a Clubhouse room and I'm like, dude, I got Gerald Salenti coming on. And people were like, okay, I don't know who he is. He would have been the greatest Clubhouse room of all time. And, we didn't have it. So you got to realize, do not listen. So somebody says this should be recorded, great wisdom being shared by this group. Yes, and that's wisdom. And it's wisdom by shared mistakes. And it's also, conventional wisdom is wrong. So who would have thought so I was driving and taking a client through Rumson yesterday, showing them how beautiful Rumson is. Rumson, New Jersey, one of the most spectacular places, I think, in the country. And so there was a guy that I knew who, I don't know if he was being, I read the article, like this guy was in trouble. So I knew he would sell his house at a loss. And the guy, was involved in some type of Ponzi scheme. And I read an article, and this guy had an amazing estate. I'd say it'd be worth $10 million today. And I was going to buy it and sell my commercial building and then put my office in there because the guy had a whole wing for his company. But I was sort of like, the house would have bad juju, even though I don't believe in that, but maybe there's like some evil spirit there that, this guy did wrong. So I was like, somebody bought that house for $3.5 million. House now is worth $10 million today. It's like a 10,000 square foot estate. I mean, it's a palace and maybe even bigger than 10,000 square feet. And it was something else, but that was a mistake. My 3 biggest mistakes were that, the beach house with the mudslides, and in Palm Beach, I wanted to buy a house in Palm Beach before COVID and didn't. I chickened out. So those are my 3 biggest financial mistakes, were things that I didn't do because of listening to experts like a Lacey Hunt or Jeff Snyder that were so, Bitcoin Tina never swayed me, that were so convincing, because to me, Bitcoin Tina was bombastic in order to get clout, but he was fun to listen to. So I'll have to take this call from my wife. Does somebody want to talk while I take this call from my wife? But again, we are on YouTube, so it just says Josh taking your questions live, April 29. So that's our YouTube, and that will have all of this amazing wisdom, and we're going to probably edit out this as bite-sized snippets for my show. If you don't know me, I'm Josh Chilinsky, the financial quarterback, host of one of the most listened to financial radio shows for the last decade in New York, on New York's Flamethrower, 50,000 watt, 710 WOR AM. But if you like financial wisdom and not noise, follow me, follow the club. Follow me on Twitter too, because I like Twitter Spaces, but I find that because I don't have a big following, I don't really, drive a lot of people in the room. We get more people when I do clubhouse rooms. So make sure you follow the club. I want to thank you all for joining me. This is Josh Chilinsky. Anybody want to comment while I call my wife? Again, this is your room. You could talk about anything financially and keep the room going while I'm gone. Okay? Keep it going. This is Josh Chilinsky, the financial quarterback, signing off. I'll be back on in a little bit.
Sounds good, Josh.
But yeah, you guys can just keep this as a room and have fun, because that's a strange thing about Clubhouse with the houses now. If a house starts, kind of can take on a life of its own.
Yeah, the only question is if your profile is tied to it, I would just be cautious on some of that, right?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to keep it open forever. I mean, 10 minutes. If you guys have questions or comments, go ahead. And I'll continue to share more wisdom from years of experience. Been in the financial service industry for the last 18 years. Been trading stocks since I was 11 with or maybe even 10. My dad got me my first share of stock, and I would look at the newspaper. So there's a lot of wisdom by by seeing people's mistakes and by learning what not to do. So,
hey, when you're done with your wife's call, I would be interested in a conversation of how the 1929s might be different from now, because everybody's talking about the market crashing more, right? Similar to 1929. The difference is in 1929, the dollar was backed by gold, and you had the ability to withdraw dollars into gold. And so we don't have that ability today. So the question is are we going to see inflation, and could that potentially push the market or continue the market going? Because I think a lot of the market increase that we've seen over time has been from dollar debasement.
Yeah, it's just a measure of inflation. I mean, if you look at inflation from 1927 to today, and you look at stocks from 1927 to today, basically stocks are good investments for the long haul because they are a measure of a way to kind of keep pace with inflation. That's it.
Yeah.
It's nothing special. And that's really all Warren Buffett did. So,
well, yeah. So, yeah, and it's interesting because we're entering a different dynamic, right? With
he can kill the YouTube.